take over fourth position.
Driving quite aggressively in these slippery conditions. It's good to see him having a go.
The all-time record holder in Australian Touring Car Championship wins is Ian Pete Gagan with 5 rounds on 4 Australian Touring Car titles. Both Bob Jane, who's at Le Mans today watching Peter Brock in action, and Alan Moffat, who we understand is in Melbourne watching us. Moffat broke his finger in his hand at Surfers Paradise International Raceway. Dick Johnson now down the outside.
And Dick Johnson's got him here. He's on the inside for the braking area, and he's
done.
He's through. You'll find that he's much faster around this Porsche carousel, and he'll get a gap on Jim Richards that I don't think Jim will be able to get back again.
Fury has the lead on Johnson, who is 5.15 seconds behind. Fury coming up to lap John Harvey, and Johnson's really going for it.
Well, I think Dick is finding the conditions are drying a little bit. It's possibly suiting his car a little better than the wet was, and he's taking advantage of it. Whether he can actually catch the flying Nissan is another thing to be reckoned with. But you can see the gap that he's opened up on Richards. It just shows that Richards was holding him up considerably there for a few laps.
In fact, the gap is 2.3 seconds back to Richards, while it's 5.32 from the Flying Fury back to the aggressive Johnson.
I think they're all aggressive out there today.
And Fury's through John Harvey. What a disappointment for John Harvey, who really was looking at this event today as an opportunity to really prove his mettle in Australian touring car racing, driving the boss's car. Fury flashes his lights at a slower competitor, and the gap drops. I'll check my watch again to be on the safe side. Drops to 3.11 seconds. Dick Johnson has hauled back 2 seconds on George Fury on that lap.
Well, it'll be interesting to see what George Fury can do, because obviously he's been getting the gap from his own pit, and now that he knows that Johnson's through Richards and catching up, we'll see whether he can actually open the gap again, or Richards is going to wear him down. Johnson's going to wear him down.
That's the position after 15 laps. George Fury leads from Dick Johnson, with Jim Richards in 3rd position. But you wouldn't etch those results in stone at this stage. Johnson comes up to overlap John Harvey. Slug, as he's known in the trade, but certainly not for his driving manner. Gets out of the way, although normally he's the hardest man in the world to pass. 2.73 seconds is the gap between Fury and Johnson across the top of the Motorcraft loop and onto the straight. It goes down to 2.53 seconds.
Well, Johnson's having a go.
The question is, Bob, as Johnson's on intermediate tyres and the track is drying, will the tyres of the big Ford Falcon do 35 laps?
Well, they're both on intermediate tyres. Fury is on Avon intermediates. I'm not quite sure what compound. They could be quite a soft compound. Whereas Johnson is on Dunlop intermediates. Now, a lot depends on the compounds that they're using, whether they're going to deteriorate as the track dries. It's all a bit of a lucky dip when you start the race in these wet conditions, whether you're going to shower again as it did at surface, or it's going to dry, as it appears to be now.
Fury's taken the challenge. He's opened the gap to 2.76 seconds. Only marginally opening it, but he now knows that Johnson's there. Drops to 2.56 on the straight. And it starts to rain again.
George looked in his rear vision mirror there to see if you could see the green Falcon appearing over the horizon.
Fury currently lies in 18th position in the Australian Touring Car Championship with only 15 points scored in the first round when he took 5th place at Sandown in February. Since then, he's had a dismal run, having electrical problems at Simmons Plains and then having to take on the spare team car, only to have the rear axle break on the starting line when it took more power than it could stand. Then staying away from Surfers Paradise to try and find reliability matched with power, only to be taken out on the second corner of the Oran Park round when he made his return by Alan Grice, who tried to pass him on the grass on the inside going to the stop corner at the end of the main straight. And there's the Slick 50 car of Peter McLeod. Back in 6th position.
I think a driver who's not particularly happy in these conditions, although he excelled himself at Surfers Paradise in a similar sort of condition. Perhaps it's his inexperience, particularly on this circuit. It's the first time that he has raced here, and it is a circuit that takes a little coming to grips with.
He's managed to get ahead of Gary Wilmington and Andrew Harris, however, after his off caused by Warren Cullen.
Rain comes down even heavier. It'll be interesting to see what effect this has on the gap between the leading Nissan of George Fury and the second place Falcon of Johnson. Perhaps Jim Richards has ordered this rain. He might move up on them again.
Well, I'll put a split on the distance between Richards and Fury. It's a fair gap, in fact. From Richard's viewpoint, it's an unfair gap. He's dropped a long way back.
Perhaps that's why team manager Frank Gardner was at the back of the pit doing that rain dance, or was he stamping on cane toads?
20.77 seconds is the gap between George Fury in the lead and Jim Richards in 3rd position. So it would take quite a deal of rain to let the Rainmaster make up that sort of a gap. With half the race now run, there's the 20-lap order: George Fury, Dick Johnson, Jim Richards.
Well, Fury now will be relying on the signals from his pit to tell him exactly how fast he has to drive in this race, because after all he only just has to win. And you can see Johnson's Falcon there in the background.
The gap is 3.65 seconds.